Good day everyone, my name is Amira and today I have a new tutorial, particularly about double welt pockets with a flap on leather. Let's get into it. As usual, I will start with some boring math, but you gotta do what you gotta do. The formulas are approximate, you can definitely tweak them to your liking, but it's a good starting point. If you don't want to deal with any calculations, skip to the next image with the ready measurements of today's example. So in order to make a double welt pocket with a flap with the measurements X by Y, you will need to follow these formulas. The flap shape is up to you, but you need to add an allowance of 1 cm around the flap. The lining shape is also up to you, but make sure to make the lining bigger than needed so that you even it out and adjust it in the end. You will probably be able to develop a more accurate formula with time, but overall having some excess in the lining is a safe choice. Today I'm going to be making a pocket with the size 11 by 1.5 centimeters and a flap 11 by 5 centimeters. You can see the measurements of the required pieces on the screen. As you can see, I have my 2 welts, 1 underwelt, 2 flap pieces and 2 linings, and I marked the right sides with an R. The next step will be to interface all your pieces. Also interface the part of the garment where you want to place the pocket. First, we fold our welts in half and iron them. You can add a stitch along the open side of each welt if you don't want it to open, or maybe your leather is thick and more difficult to handle. I was okay with just ironing. Align one of the welts with the lining, right side up. You can bring the welt a bit down from the edge of the lining, especially if it's prone to fraying. Secure with some clips and connect with a stitch close to the edge. I ironed my piece after this step. You can definitely iron every other step. It does give a nice look to the sewn piece. And top stitch the lining to the welt. Next step is a new trick for me when doing the double welt pocket, and it's to connect the 2 welts with stitches on the sides. I've seen it used in some jackets that I've unpicked, still thinking which method I like more. Connect the second welt to the first one with clips and secure with a stitch. It can be a bit tricky, so make sure the welts are close together. Now let's prepare our main piece by drawing a rectangle with the measurements 11 by 1.5 centimeters. Draw a line in the center and stop in about 1.5 centimeter from both sides. Draw a Y shape to the corners, then cut along the lines. Now we use some tape on the back side in order to fold the cut sides to the back, forming the rectangular shape. After that, I iron my frame to set everything in. Next, I add some more tape along the long sides and center the welts onto it. Eventually, I found it easier to put the welts on the table and align the main garment on top of it. The right side of the lining should be facing the outside rather than the main garment piece. You might have to readjust the welts more than once until you like how it looks. Then I mark the sides with the letters A, B, C, and D for easier explanation. We need to top stitch along the B side, so I marked my starting and finishing points. I don't secure the stitches since I'm going to do it by hand for a neater look. For that, you need to pull the back thread, revealing a loop, then pull it with a pin and then tie 3-4 knots. Now the flap. Put the 2 pieces face to face, secure with some clips and sew along the edge. I tried to sew about 0.8–0.9 centimeters from the edge since the bulkiness will take some of the fabric and I didn't want to end up with a shorter flap than desired. Then I cut down the allowance near the round part to have a nicer shape after turning the piece inside out. After turning the flap, it's going to look like an airbag, so I went to iron it to make it flatter. I also checked if my flap turned out with the needed measurements. Next, we need to do top stitching. I decided to add 2 additional stitches in the center just for style purposes. First, I top stitched the center lines and then around the flap. Like always, the thread runs out in the middle of the project. Now that the flap is ready, take your second lining and the underwelt and align them face to face and sew a connecting stitch 0.5 centimeters from the edge and top stitch. Choose which side of the flap you like more and align it in the center of the underwelt. Then connect everything together with a stitch close to the edge. Now I'm going to mark 1 centimeter from the top side of the flap. Transfer it to the underwelt and make small notches to make it more visible. Also, I added a tape to the D side to secure the flap. We will have to align the cuts with the line between the welts. I just pushed the flap through the opening and then aligned everything. After you aligned everything and you like how it looks, you need to top stitch along A, D, and C. My machine struggled a bit since the pocket got really thick. I increased my stitch to the maximum for my machine, which is 5 millimeters. Then I secured the stitches by hand. Next, I evened out my linings and finally sewed the linings together. You will have to stitch all around through all the layers except the main piece. I would suggest leaving a decent allowance and you can finish the lining with an overlock or a bias tape. Now look how cool this looks. I'm impressed. Hope you found the video informative or entertaining. Leave your thoughts and suggestions, I do appreciate it. It gives me the serotonin to carry on with these. And for now, take care and bye bye.